In this video, I'm going to walk through an example of how to use Excel to create a bivariate table, how to create an elaboration table, and how to use the application to determine whether the relationship observed in a table is statistically significant. Unlike the other videos you've seen in these labs, this one does not provide a step-by-step walkthrough of the lab you'll actually be working on. The techniques are the same, but by this point in the course, I'd like you to be able to manage more independently. So let's get started. Let's start first with a bivariate table. We're going to look here at the relationship between happiness and health in the 2018 General Social Survey. So as you can see, I have the GSS dataset open on my screen, and the way to start this work is to first separate out the two variables we're interested in, health and happiness. So I'm going to select the columns, copy them, and paste them into a new sheet that I've already created. Okay, you'll note that there are 136 rows of data here. So that's a good thing to know. And let's get started. I've got the data group selected. I'm going to go to the Insert tab and Insert Pivot Table. The table range is already provided for me by default, but I want to paste my table into this worksheet. So I'm going to go over here to J. It doesn't matter where you go, but I'm going to go over to J and set up my table to begin in J1. So there's my pivot table in J1, and let's get started building it out. So happiness is going to be my dependent variable, and my hypothesis is that someone's health affects their happiness, so we're going to put health in the column position because that's where we're going to put independent variables in general. Come down, and it doesn't matter which, well, it does matter a little bit which one I take, but I'm going to put happiness down here, and you can see I have the beginnings of a table over here. In the column positions we have health, and in the row positions we have level of happiness. To make this a little bit easier to read, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put these in order from excellent health down to poor health, and from very happy to not very happy. So there are two ways to do that. I'll show you both of them. One way is to simply enable Excel to sort this out for us. So excellent will be in position 1, good will be in position 2, fair in position 3, and poor in position 4. And I can just come over here to where it says column labels, click on it, sort A to Z, and now we have everything sorted in the order that I'd like to see it in. Okay, let me just even out those columns just a bit. This may actually change back again. To move these health rows around, I could also put 1, 2s, and 3s in front, but I'll show you another way to do it. I'm going to simply select the row, and you can see I can move it. And we'll select this row, and we'll move it down. Okay, so now we are sorted in order of health across the columns and in order of happiness down the rows. We want to get rid of these missing data columns, so I'm going to go up again to column labels, and I'm going to come down here and click to remove the blanks. So I've done that, and I'm going to do the same thing here for the happiness variable. Remove the blanks. Okay, so of course you know that we want to look at percentages when we're doing a contingency table analysis. So here I have counts. Let me change that to value field settings over here. I'm going to click on this down arrow, click value settings, click show values as, and select columns, because again we percentage down the columns of the independent variable. And that's our first crosstab table right there. You can see that people in excellent health report higher levels of happiness than people in poor health. And that's hardly very surprising. But nonetheless, that's our finding. All right, let's look now at an elaboration table. Let's go and add another value to this data set that we have here. Let's look to see how gender is impacted, or whether or not gender impacts happiness through health. I'm going to go to data view and select column Q here, sex. Right click, copy, come back over to sheet 1 and paste that in there. Now I'm going to select all of this data, and I can do that by holding down Control and Shift, but you'll see we don't make it quite all the way down. So sometimes it's best to start from the last row and go up like that. All right, we have our data set selected. We'll go to Insert, Pivot Table. There's our range. It should say A1 to C136 for this data set. And remember, that's why I checked to make sure that I went down all the way to row 136. Again, we'll do this in the existing worksheet. And we'll put it, say, over there in J11. Click OK. And there's our pivot table. I'm going to speed things up for a minute just to show you how to set up, because we're going to have to duplicate the work that we have in table number 1. So you don't need to see me do that again. I'll do it very quickly. Okay, so basically all I've done here is I've just duplicated this table that I have in table 1 up here in table 2. Now, however, let's add this third variable, gender. What I'm going to do is I'm going to drag gender down to filters, the filters area. So far, nothing's changed. Now look, if I click this down arrow, I have the choice of selecting to females and just creating a partial table for females, or selecting males and creating a partial table for males. So let's first take a look at males. I've unclicked females. I'm going to click OK now. And you can see that for males, the situation is quite a bit different than it is for females. Males who are in good health or in excellent health are very happy. They're happier than the males and the females combined. And however, men who are in poor health, none of them report being very happy. At least a few were very happy in the first, when we combined, at least when we combined men and women, there were at least a few people who were very happy even under poor health. But for the men, not so much. Now let's take a look at the females. Unclick male, click female, and there you see, females in general are less happy. Combining men and women, 57% reported being very happy if they were in excellent health, whereas looking at women only 37% report being very happy in excellent health. All right, so that's an elaboration table. Now let's look at creating a CrossTab, creating the tables we need to run a chi-square test on these data. So you know that for chi-square we need an set of observed data and a set of expected values. How do we get those? Well, we can use what we have in this table over here. We have to bring it back to counts. So instead of having row percents, as column percents as I have here, I'm going to click no calculation, and this is going to give me just simple counts. So let me select this table. Just for convenience sake, I don't really have to do this, but to make it a little bit easier to understand what I'm doing, I will do it. Now, I've selected this table up here, and I'm going to paste, but only paste values. Only going to paste the values. Okay, so these are our observed values. Just name that observed values. Okay. And let me copy this just so I have the table structure. Again, right-click, copy, and Control V to paste. And let me first get rid of these values, because this is where we're going to put our expected values. Don't forget, for chi-square, we need observed values and expected values. So to compute our expected values, we're going to take our row marginal, multiply it by our column marginal, and then divide by the total in the sample. So for this first one, I'm going to put an equal sign, and I'm going to say the row marginal associated with that row times the column marginal divided by this guy over here. And that is my expected value for folks who report excellent health and report being very happy. If there's no relationship between health and happiness, I should see 6 people in this cell. All right. Now, I can retype the formula in each cell using the appropriate row and column marginal. Let me do that a little bit quicker by making a change to this formula here. We're going to make sure that we change the value in the row, but we're going to keep using K34, because K34 is where we have our column marginal. And we're going to keep using O34, so I'm just going to press a $sign, place a $sign between the cell and between the row and the column reference to create an absolute reference. Of course, the value doesn't change, but now I can fill down and get the correct values because Excel has modified the row value for me in each one of these. And there's a bunch of fancy ways of doing this, but I'm going to stick with the easy, tried and true way. And again, that's this time going to be L34 divided by the grand total. I can press Control, I'm just going to press the F4 key if I want to make O34 an absolute reference. And there we go. And we'll just fill down. And I'll speed ahead and do all of these. And there are all of my expected values. There are all my expected values. Okay. Let's put a p-value equals, and we'll have Excel compute the value of the p-value for this set of tables in this cell over here in K37. And when you do this, you can use whatever cells you want. So the correct formula that we need to input is going to be chi-squared test down here. And chi-squared test takes 2 arguments. The first is the actual range. We're calling that the observed values, comma, the expected values or expected range. I'm going to close the parentheses, press enter, and there is the value. There's the probability that what we observed is due only to chance. If we set an alpha level, as we do traditionally, of 0.05, we can see that we are less than alpha equals 0.05. Therefore, the relationship between health and happiness is statistically significant. That's pretty much all there is to this. And in the problems that I'm going to give you, I'm going to be using the same techniques, but on different variables, basically. So I hope that that's helpful.